Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Mark with Russ Brasher.
So far as we've read through the Gospel of Mark chapter 5, by taking a closer look at Jesus from the stories that we find here, we've learned that God is powerful, that God has the power to restore, and yesterday that God is compassionate. Well, today, as we continue to read through, we will see that God is personal. So let's jump in to the Gospel of Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. And the setting here is Jesus is on the way to the father's house whose daughter was dying. But as he's on his way, he encounters a woman. Starting in verse 25. A large crowd followed and pressed around Jesus, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him and in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowded against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." And it is here in the story of the Gospel of Mark that we pause to make our fourth point of the week, the fourth truth about who God is, his character and nature, by looking at the life of Jesus. And it is getting a chance to know and realize that God is in fact personal, that we get a chance to have a relationship with a personal God, a God who looks at you and me and calls us sons and daughters, and just to rest in the reality of what that truly means. You see, I remember two of the greatest moments of my life was, one, the day that I got a chance to marry my wife, Lindsay, and the second was becoming a father for the first time, and seeing my daughter and holding Peyton Grace in my arms, and not even realizing that the love that I had inside of me for another human being, that in that moment, when my hand held hers, when our eyes locked, and when I saw her, that everything in me loved her with everything that I had, and that I would spend the rest of my life showing her how much I loved her, showing her how much I wanted to be in relationship with her, showing her how much I would go through to protect her, to keep her safe, to give her life and life to the full, to help her point her, to show her who God is and to see how important he is in my life, and to hope to see that she would understand that one day, that I would do anything for my daughter. And to see here in this story that Jesus refers to this woman as daughter is proof, it's truth, that God is personal. One commentator said, "Our relationship with God is rooted in his glory and expressed in his immanence. God is present with us, deeply invested and active in each of our lives. He is a personal God. He relates to us, loves us, and cherishes us. Rather than being distant, inaccessible, and detached, he has drawn near to us so that we might draw near to him. By grace, he dwells among us, and by that same grace, he invites us into his presence." And we see this happen in this story, that Jesus stops, even though he is on his way to do something very important. He stops to draw near to the woman who touched him, to listen to her story, to reveal himself to him, and to call her daughter, to heal her, to restore her, to let her know that Jesus is personal, that God is personal, so personal that he calls her daughter. And I just love that. I know that's true. My love for my daughter is only a glimpse of the love that God has for you and me as sons and daughters. And because of who Jesus is and what he has done for us, We get to have put faith in that truth, in that sacrifice, and truly become sons and daughters of God, the way that we were created to be in relationship with him. And I praise God that he is a personal God who by grace desires to draw near and make himself known to us through Jesus Christ.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.